All right, here we are again. We are here with Rob, who will be playing as Nocturne. Thank you to all of our viewers and to all of our supporters. We really appreciate you guys being along with us on this journey. So, hey Rob, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, pretty good. I had a little trouble sleeping last night, but most gamers can attest to that.
Well, I'll see what I can do to put you to sleep in this interview. I'll be as boring as humanly possible so that we can put us all to sleep. It'll be great.
Sad panda. So, speaking of Nocturne and his comedy routines, tell us a little bit about Nocturne. What made him become a jester?
So Nocturne, his real name is Thielis Veraci. He was born in a small little mountainside town of winged tieflings. And he always wanted to be a composer. He wanted to be in the arts. He wanted to compose music. He wanted to be a great musician. And that was his life's ambition, and that's why he took the name Nocturne as his virtue name. As you know, tieflings in D&D, they like to pick that virtue name that's related to something they aspire to. And he got an opportunity at basically the equivalent of a local talent show. And he got up there, and he was all ready. He had his little lute, and he was going to start playing, and he strummed, and bing! The string broke.
Oh, no.
And everybody in the crowd just started laughing at him. And, of course, he was heartbroken and embarrassed and kind of urinated himself a little bit out of the embarrassment of the moment, which, of course, made people laugh even louder, and they found that hilarious. So he kind of embarrassingly tried to stumble off of the stage and tripped over his own tail and fell off the stage and face planted on the dirt. And the crowd was in uproar. They thought it was the funniest thing ever. He was, of course, heartbroken. Until he learned that he won first prize in the talent show for such a brilliant act. And from that day on, he wanted to make people laugh. He realized that was his calling.
That's a very interesting way to turn a really horrible event into a silver lining, that's for sure. So, after he won first prize, how long did it take him to recover?
Not very long. They ushered him onto stage to accept his first prize within a few minutes, an hour at the most. And when he heard everybody applauding him and saw that it was, people were smiling, people were applauding in a genuine way, not a mocking way, he sort of realized that he had brought a little bit of joy to their lives without even meaning to. And started thinking about, I always wanted to bring joy with my music. Maybe this is just I'm being shown the way to do it. And so It really didn't take him that long to recover. It more made him rethink what he had thought his life was going to be and sort of see it now veer off in this sort of wild, chaotic direction.
Fair enough. So, what kind of jester are you? Do you like to push the envelope as far as you can? Do you play more pranks?
He himself has become a very lighthearted person, but he does take his craft seriously. I mean, the jesters, both in real history and in Anarria, they train. He is a college-trained bard, essentially. I mean, he went to a bard college in order to learn his craft and be as good at it as possible. So while he likes to bring levity to situations, and while he doesn't want anything to ever get too serious, he does take his work seriously, and he feels genuine about wanting to bring joy to other people's lives. So he wouldn't, I don't think, go out of his way to do anything too embarrassing, too harmful. He might want to take somebody down a peg here or there, but he usually doesn't mess with people who he doesn't think will see the levity of the situation.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us where does Nocturne get his inspiration from?
So the way I go about creating characters in D&D, I haven't been playing as long as some of the players at this table, certainly. Certainly not as long as you've been doing this. You mentioned the other day this has been a love child of yours for almost 30 years now.
Yeah, it's been a while, and I'm dating myself over here.
I've only been playing D&D for a little over 2 years, believe it or not. So I'm fairly new to the game, and so I'm still experimenting with combinations. There are still a lot of races I've never played. There are still a lot of classes I've never played because our games tend to go fairly long, 6 months plus sometimes to get through a campaign. And so when I created Nocturne, I thought I've never played a warlock before, and so I would like to give that a shot. And the way I create characters is I sort of decide what I want them to do mechanically at the table, and then I back build the story from there. And with this particular character, I was thinking about, okay, if a warlock is going to be useful in combat,
Sorry about that.
we back up.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Little technical difficulties there. So I was thinking if a warlock was going to be useful or interesting in combat, for the most part, he relies very heavily on the Eldritch Blast cantrip. And that can get pretty boring mechanically as a player at a table saying, you say, all right, Rob, you're up. What do you want to do? Eldritch Blast, Eldritch Blast, Eldritch Blast. And that's probably what I'll do, but I was trying to think of ways to make that more interesting. And I was sitting around sort of thinking through this character, and I realized that sort of juggling balls would be a very interesting flavor for Eldritch Blast. He's just juggling away, and he throws one, and it hits the target. And so that would be a way of making it a little bit more fun, a little bit more interesting. And I think, okay, why would somebody be juggling balls? Well, maybe because he's a jester. And so that's where I sort of came into the decision to make Nocturne into this sort of jester character.
Very nice. That's actually very interesting, and I love how you're taking one of my homebrew rules and running with it. Like, I prefer to have my players flavor their magics and things so that it better suits their character, because if I imagined a magical world, like, I don't think everything would happen exactly the same, you know, because everyone's imagination is different. How they manifest something is always going to be different. So
it really helps bring a lot of flavor to the character and to the world.
Yeah, and it also makes it a little less monotonous when you're throwing Eldritch Blast every round. So, I'm going to throw a bowling pin, a bowling ball, a
pie in the face.
Toy.
You're going to get some pies in the face.
Pies in the face. There you go. So where does Nocturne come from? It not just your hometown you mentioned, but where is it that you feel like Nocturne fully started to evolve into himself?
I think failure is very important for Nocturne in a very weird way. His first steps on this journey towards being a jester came from the failure at that talent show, in a lot of ways. After he graduated, and he did quite well in Bard College at the Snickerclap Guild, as you've named it. He tried to get himself some employment with various noble families around Anarria and around Zoram, and he failed at that. Most nobles either already had their entertainment on retainer or just weren't interested. And so that's another point of failure for Nocturne, where his life sort of took this sort of weird turn. He wound up in Zor, I believe. Zor is a port town, right?
Yep.
And he would entertain sailors and well, not so much sailors, but deckhands and people who were there to help unload ships. He would help entertain them on their downtime on the docks when there were no ships to service. And, he'd be working for copper. I mean, he wasn't making much money, but he got noticed by a captain who was about to take a long journey and invited into this ship, basically, to be the entertainment, which was something that was largely unheard of. I mean, you want most people on a ship to be able to pull their own weight, but I think this captain had problems with morale in the past and said, you know what, I'm going to bring in a jester. Maybe this will help liven up the nights. Maybe it'll help entertain the men and keep them off of their fighting and their malcontent. And that ended up leading to a very serious moment where Nocturne has a problem, and that problem with Nocturne is the more serious a situation is, the funnier he finds it. He finds when people are getting really keyed up, when people are getting very tense and very stressed out, he finds the absurdity of that hilarious for whatever reason. I mean, coping mechanism, whatever you want to call it.
That sounds like some PTSD.
Possibly. I mean, he had a pretty good upbringing, but I think part of that defense mechanism of being able to laugh at himself is also being able to laugh at these very, very tense situations. Unfortunately, not everybody shares his levity in these serious situations, and the captain of this particular ship was very upset one day at another sailor, and Nocturne found this uproarious, and eventually the captain's ire turned to him, and he wouldn't stop. And Nocturne was hogtied and thrown off the deck, left to die in the harsh and unforgiving sea.
Oh, fantastic.
And that's where the real turn in Nocturne's character comes from. As I said, he's trained as a bard, but I'm not playing a bard. I am playing a warlock. And as Nocturne sank, something spared him.
I guess that's going to come out at the table.
I mean, it's in his backstory. Any of you on Discord can check that out if you want. But yes, that I'm sure will come up at some point at the table.
Speaking of the towns and the cities, I just want to back up a little bit when you said Zor. For the viewers that don't know this, inside of the Empire of Zoram, the continent, the Empire named it Zoram. Even though they don't control the whole thing, they've named the entire continent Zoram because they plan to conquer it. The capital city on the east coast is called Zoram Prime. Directly north of that city is the largest port city. It's called Zor. And that is where the first bank of the Empire was founded and is technically the financial institution of the Empire. So they have a lot of power there and they get away with a lot of things. But all of the guilds are located in the capital. So just for clarification. So moving on to our next question. So what are your goals in ICEMORR? What are your feelings about going to this unknown place?
That's a difficult question. I think one of the things that led Nocturne to even be interested in this is just the financial upside. I mean, we are being paid a ludicrous sum of money if we're able to succeed in this, as well as potential share in some of the plunder, if indeed there is any. So, as somebody who lived dirt poor, entertaining deckhands on the dock for a few copper, the ability to sort of not have to sustain himself that way, I'm sure, was one of the primary upsides of this. But at heart, he is also a bard. He's a storyteller. I think jesters in general get a pretty bad rap, historically and in kind of modern storytelling. A lot of people think of them as nothing but buffoons. They're there to humiliate themselves and belittle themselves for a couple of cheap laughs. And while jesters absolutely do that, they were also singers. They were also musicians. They were storytellers. They were messengers. They were trusted advisors to kings at times. And I didn't want to neglect that element of Nocturne's character. So I do think that part of what he wants is a story. He wants to be able to to see something that few people have ever seen and to be able to recount that and retell that. And so there's an element of the undiscovered nature to it. As with all of our characters, there are also some personal things that he is probably looking to accomplish that I feel would be better revealed at the table.
Fair enough.
And so I won't get into those now. But as with any warlock, a question that you have to ask is not so much what the warlock wants, but what the warlock's patron wants. And in many cases, there is no answer to that yet. So it is quite possible that Nocturne will have something that will be thrust upon him through otherworldly means. I'm not speaking out of knowledge. I don't know what's going to happen with that. As of right now, the connection between Nocturne and his patron is very thin. There's not a lot of detail. There's not a lot of communication between the two. But it's something that as players and as DMs and as viewers, we can't overlook.
That's very true.
It is probably a complication that will come up.
I get it. I'm looking forward to seeing where Nocturne goes with a lot of the I can't speak English today. With the aspects of his life. I mean, I took a couple read-throughs on your backstory, and there's a few things you left open-ended, and there's a few things where you were very precise about, and I noticed that, did he leave that window open for me, or is that character development? So we'll figure that out at the table. So the next question on the list here is, during the 6 months when you were in the guild, in the capital, and I'm not referring to your Bardic guild, I'm referring to the training for the voyage.
Yes.
Any input on the other four primary members of the party?
I mean, you're going to have to ask them to a point how they feel about me. Nocturne is genuinely a people pleaser. He wants people to be happy around him, and he doesn't want to annoy people any more than is necessary. He doesn't want to be a source of negativity for most other people. So he's going to be a little bit different around individuals. You know, he'll be different around H than he is, if it's just him and H, than he would be around him and Balam, for instance. The dichotomy of what those two characters in specifics are looking for in that moment, he might try and become that. Not because he's deceptive, not because he's insecure, but because he wants them to be more comfortable, he wants them to be happier. In terms of his read on the other people, I know in the interview you conducted yesterday with Josh, Josh mentioned that Sonny was potentially going to have a very interesting relationship with Nocturne, and I definitely agree with that. If Sonny projects that playfulness that Josh was talking about, then in all likelihood, Nocturne is going to feed into that, and they could get into some interesting problems potentially.
I can see that coming very quickly. Yep.
But it will depend largely on how Sonny reacts. One of the things Josh said, I don't want to refer too much to other interviews, but one of the things that Josh said was that Sonny wouldn't pull a prank that he wouldn't be okay with somebody pulling on him. And as long as Nocturne feels that way, he wouldn't mind being pranked. That's funny, and he is a jester. Like I said, there are a lot of facets to gesturing, but ultimately they're there to make asses of themselves if it makes other people happier. So Balam, based on what I heard in Hunter's interview, maybe he takes himself a little bit too seriously. And depending on how that goes, that might be something that Nocturne will largely avoid him. It might be something where he needs to be taken down a peg here or there. Nocturne does believe that if somebody like very powerful people, very important people, if they can't joke about themselves, then they don't have confidence in their own abilities. Because if you have confidence, then it doesn't matter what people are saying about you. Mm-hmm. And it's the leaders who react harshly to being mocked that Nocturne has sort of the biggest problems with, because it shows in his mind a lack of confidence. Nocturne has penned some verses about some very powerful people. And whether they know it or not remains to be seen. But if any of them were to take offense, Nocturne would see that as a sign of weakness, as a sign of a lack of confidence in their own power.
Kind of like blood in the water.
Yeah.
Well, I can definitely agree with you. I mean, I'm not going down this rabbit hole, so just going to warn everyone. I can definitely see where some of, like, America's politicians could use a few jesters in their lives.
Sure.
That's all I'm saying. that I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I can see where livening up and lightening their day so that they have that moment to go snap them back to reality, where they're like, hey, look, we're humanoids, and we need to kind of keep it civil, kind of calm it down a little bit.
Sure.
And don't forget to, laugh at yourself every now and then, because you can't take life too seriously. So I definitely see you knocking quite a few people down a few pegs, and I'm looking forward to how that grows in, each other's character developments, because I find it very entertaining as a DM when I see, let's say, session 1, Balaam, as an example, let's say Balaam wants to strangle you because you're talking all this crap and you're throwing pies at him while he's trying to organize all this stuff. And you're over there like, I'm just trying to make you smile, and he's like dying, like, and then session 12, you tell a joke to someone that you just met or throw a pie at him, and they try to kill you, and Balaam's like, no, I'm going to kill you first. Like, that's my jester,
Right.
That growth is what I love on tabletop D&D.
Sure.
And I foresee the first few episodes of the season being very, what's going to happen? And then after that, I can see you guys bonding over time. But you and Sunny, I have no idea what you guys are up to. Like, that is... And ironically, someone pointed out the whole connection between your names that you guys did not do intentionally.
Right.
Sunny and Nocturne.
Right.
So sun and moon, night and day. So it's funny how you guys are going to, bounce off of each other character-wise. So that's interesting.
That is interesting. I actually hadn't made that connection yet. And like you said, we created our characters independently. Both were fully fleshed before either knew what the other one was.
Yep.
That's very interesting.
I'm looking forward to that.
Plus his name rhymes with funny, and Nocturne's going to use that a lot.
I didn't even think about that. I will say, as a DM, I'm totally looking forward to your verses. When you throw verses out at people, and I think that's one of the things I'm most excited about your character. That and the interaction with the something that saved you.
Sure.
That I think is going to be very interesting for our viewers to learn at the table as well.
One thing I would like to say about the verses, just as a disclaimer, I suppose, it's much easier to write them when nobody's like watching you and doing things ahead of time than it is to try and come up with a verse at the table. I'm not saying I won't do it. I'm not saying I won't try for it. It probably won't be as polished as what I've written. For those of you who haven't seen in the Discord, there's a sub-channel called The Verses of Nocturne, where I've written limericks about most of the important people of Anarria who are not coming with us. I want to separate that.
Thankfully.
So, I will not be speaking in rhyming couplets throughout the entire campaign or anything like that, just because the pressure of trying to do that live on stream every time will A, become tedious for a lot of people. B, it'll be a lot more stressful for me.
Yeah.
And it would just be harder to say the things that I might need to say in any given situation. Having said that, I will try to incorporate that at least occasionally.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So that moves us on to opening the floor for your questions. So for those of you that are viewing, we have a few different sources of where people can send in questions. If you're on Discord, you can send it there. I'll check. You can send it to me on Facebook. You can send it to us directly on the stream. You could send it to us through YouTube. So we'll give a couple minutes for those to come through. Because I only have 2 at the moment. I want to hopefully get around 5.
That'd be nice.
So while we're waiting for those questions, if you would tell us a little bit about your opinion of the Empire.
My character's opinion or mine?
Rob's.
Mine.
I would like to see what your insights are for the Empire of Zoram.
Well, that's a difficult question because I come from a place of odd knowledge and also ignorance. You know, on the one hand, I've played in your games. I played in 3 other games that were set on Anarria. 2 of them were in the, correct me if I'm wrong, 3rd age?
Correct.
3rd age. So we're talking, what, thousands of years later?
Correct.
After what this is set. And then the other one was set in the 1st age, as this one was, but still quite a bit down the timeline. I think you said in Josh's interview, 3?
Between 3 and 500 years.
Sure. So a lot of what I've pieced together with the Empire comes from that. And then the ignorance side of it is that means that there's a lot I don't know about the time it's set now. You know, I don't know what kind of a ruler the Emperor is. I don't know what kind of a power structure there is. Any empire in general is a dangerous idea as a blanket statement because an empire implies that you have a conqueror. It implies that you have somebody who is at the center who has expanded outward. Now, how they expanded, we don't know. Did they expand through military conquest? Did they expand through cultural appropriation? Alliances that ended up just merging into the same nation? We don't know. But the fact that one ruler wants to sort of rule everything could come from a place of benevolence. It could be that they think that the one ruler will have a singular guide, a singular vision for where everything goes, and they're trying to help the most number of people. But I think oftentimes you run the risk with that single emperor of corruption. You run the risk of greed. You run the risk of arrogance. There are so many problems when you have a single ruler. And so an empire in general, it's a dangerous thing, I think. And from what I've played in your games, the Empire seems to, for the most part, be, if not a good place, certainly the lesser of the evils around them in many instances. But we're at a very, very early stage in this history. For all we know, for all I know, this emperor could be the equivalence of a Genghis Khan or something like that. And, you know, we don't know. And so I think the measure of an empire is how the people within it are treated. And until I see that through the eyes of my character and start experiencing what life is like for a commoner, I really can't say how I feel about the empire in general.
Fair enough.
As a character, though, I am part of the Empire and not disloyal to them. I mean, Nocturne is not a political person apart from mocking political figures.
I don't think jesters can be political. I mean, that kind of breaks away from their purpose. So, well, thank you for giving us that insight. I was just a little curious myself how you viewed them. And I completely agree with you. Most empires are extremely dangerous for all of those reasons you mentioned. And just to clarify, because I am new at streaming, I don't want to insult anyone. When he mentioned Genghis Khan, I said, I actually love the Mongolian culture. I think it's beautiful. I love their food and so many different aspects about their culture. But we all know what Genghis Khan did, and that man, wow, he really did not leave much to desire there. But
check out some Mongolian music. It's amazing.
Oh, the Mongolian throat.
Yeah.
Do they call it yodeling or
I don't.
what is
remember
it?
The,
The
I don't
throat
remember
singing.
the term, but yeah.
There was a TV show I watched quite a while back that they canceled. It was Marco Polo.
Oh.
It was Marco Polo, and it was set during the after Genghis Khan era, and there was a few episodes where there was a lot of throat singing,
Okay.
the Mongolian throat. It's actually quite beautiful.
Interesting.
And anyway, we're getting sidetracked here. So we're going to switch over to the couple of questions. I have one here on Facebook. What kind of trouble do you think Sunny and Nocturne would get up to during training?
Training can be a very tedious time, especially depending on what kind of training.
Which means Nocturne jokes more because everyone's serious.
Exactly, and they're going to need to blow off some steam after long, hard days of learning, the ropes, literally, because I believe one of the things they're teaching us is how to sail.
The basics.
The basics. And so I would imagine that, especially as evening and night, kind of closes in on everything, I imagine Sunny and I probably either pulled pranks on each other, teamed up to pull pranks on other people, joked around, laughed around. I don't know. I don't think this came up in your interview. Do you know if Sunny's much of a drinker?
I feel confident in answering that question. I normally would not divulge things about characters, but I know everything about his background, and so I know where he comes from and all the secrets that he's alluded to.
Sure. Yeah, don't give anything away. But...
Oh, no, not going to. But because of that, I know for a fact he does drink.
All right.
Because of where he comes from. But I'm not going to say he indulges to the point of, public drunkenness, but...
Well, I might
you
have
know,
potentially goaded him towards that direction once or twice.
Oh, I see what's going on.
Yeah.
He has been drunk under the table.
Probably gotten him to streak at least once. I think he would enjoy
I don't
that.
think that requires alcohol. I'm pretty sure
it doesn't.
he said
I'm just saying it helps.
I'm pretty sure he said he would do that anyway.
Well, there you
just
go.
prompting. So, a little bit of a note for those of you that are viewing. One of our viewers says that The Who, H-U, is a really good Mongolian metal band.
I have heard of them.
You guys should go check them out.
I haven't seen much of their stuff, but...
I have heard a couple things from them. I do believe the person who mentioned it actually showed me a video of theirs on YouTube a few months ago, if I remember correctly.
Excellent.
I don't really remember. My memory's terrible nowadays. But so we're going to go to our second question, and our second question is going to be from Mambo. And the question is, so if you're flavoring your Eldritch Blast to look like different things, is it going to be different flavored pies, or is it going to be different objects every time?
I wouldn't say every time. His primary use of Eldritch Blast will be spheres of energy that he starts juggling. He's going to literally do this, just pantomime juggling, and all of a sudden spheres will show up that he's juggling of various colors. And at early levels where he only gets one beam, he'll sort of lob one and the others will disappear. But, in other times I will mix it up. I'll pull out a pie it'll be a phantom pie. It's Eldritch Blast, and I'll throw it some 120 feet, which will be pretty impressive for people who have no idea that it's actual Eldritch Blast.
As the DM, I think I'm going to take this a little bit further.
Sure.
I think when you do use the pie as your manifestation of Eldritch Blast, temporarily, we'll say for 2 rounds, whatever pie you throw at them, they can taste and smell, and the smell will linger for a couple of rounds, so they can be reminded of what just happened to them with a pie.
So maybe I'll have to get a list of pies and
Oh yeah.
roll on a table to see what it is. I do
Chocolate.
want to introduce a degree of chaos and a degree of randomness to this character.
Very nice.
So part of what I'm going to be doing is I would like to roll for some of these random effects, and maybe later in the game, knock on wood, maybe these will actually have mechanical effects as well. But certainly in the beginning of the campaign, I'll have spheres of energy. I'll have the what do they call them? Batons. Maybe I'll juggle chainsaws at some point, even though nobody would have any idea what they are. Maybe at some point I'll hit somebody with a ludicrously long party favor, the thing.
Oh, nice.
But 120 feet long. So there's a world of possibilities here for us to flavor this in unique ways that will be sort of just unique to Nocturne, and that's
I would be open to working with you as you work with your character to try to develop these abilities, to maybe add a wild magic effect, our own 100 chart.
Sure.
We could maybe do something like that as the game progressed. Something, not as impactful as wild magic. I mean, you don't want to turn someone into a rabbit for the rest of their lives, but
I could pull them out of a hat.
That's an interesting concept. Imagine if you could have a magical hat appear, pull them out of the hat, and bring them to your square, kind of like the Eldritch Blast, the one that pulls to you.
The grasp of
The
power.
grasping. That's it. See, creative minds.
Well,
man.
you did mention in some of your rules on Discord that you posted that one of the things that we can do as characters is work to add effects to our spells.
Absolutely.
And so that is something that I will attempt to do at some point, possibly early on, depending on what kind of NPCs we have lying around.
That's very true. I definitely look forward to that. That's for sure. So we're gonna move on to our next question.
Oh, we got more. Excellent.
Yeah, we got two more.
Good work, everyone.
This question is from a. I don't really know how to pronounce German words, so I'm not even going to try. I don't mean any offense, but...
I took 4 years of German. Unfortunately, it was from 2nd grade till 6th, and I remember almost nothing.
Oh, fantastic. So you're in the same boat. Got it. So this question says, what exactly do you think will be your biggest obstacle once you arrive at your destination?
That's a very good question because there will be a lot of them. This character is designed to be very social, very socially based. High charisma, obviously, with the warlock. I think some of the things that Balam is going to be best at are going to be some of the things that I will be worst at. Things like survival, things like dealing with these harsh conditions. I have done what I can based on the money that we were given as an advance and some of the magical items. You guys, I don't know can I reveal this secret? The way this game worked was a lot of the magical items that exist in the realm of Dungeons and Dragons had not been invented yet at this point in history. And so a lot of things that might have made this a lot easier were essentially rolled for to see if they existed, and many of the things that would have helped do not exist. So I tried based on what...
No bags of holding.
No bags of holding, which would have been very, very useful. But I tried to prepare as best I can to hopefully mitigate some of those risks. We did a point buy system for this, and those points are valuable. I put as much as I could, I felt I could afford into Constitution to hopefully bulk up both my HP and hopefully weather related phenomenon. But definitely the physical things are going to be the challenge here. Nocturne is not a fighter. Well, he's a fighter in a way, but he's not strong. He's not particularly intelligent. Not even all that wise. A little bit, but those are the things that are going to be the biggest trouble. If he gets caught out there in a blizzard, we're going to need some help.
That's a very good point. So, we have one more question. Sorry, I keep looking around. I have a few different platforms I have to keep track of.
Here, I'll distract them. Can't see the camera.
No, okay.
There it is. It's the delay. That's why.
Yeah. So, this one is from Dwelling on My Life.
Huh.
Interesting. They ask, so you said Nocturne can fly, and because you hinted that about being from a town of tieflings that can fly, but my question is, do you have a tail?
I do have a tail. I have a prehensile tail, and often use it in my juggling acts. So, often juggling, 5 or 6 balls at once, using both hands and the tail. We did. Ron, you're going to have to help me out. What was it Sword Coast, Adventures of Sword Coast, that have the tiefling variant?
Yep, the variant.
So we were allowed to take the tiefling variant where we got rid of the is it infernal lineage or the magic that's inherent to tieflings. We were given the option to remove that and instead get wings, and because of, well, maybe I shouldn't go into that, but I can walk. I'm an excellent swimmer, and I felt that being able to fly basically would help me gain domain over all 3 of the major modes of transportation. So I very much, I didn't feel I needed, what spells are given to the tiefling? Hellish Rebuke at level 3, Thaumaturgy, I believe, and then something
like
later on. I felt that while useful, flight was far more so, especially knowing what kind of campaign this was going to be. And honestly, just the winged tiefling seems cool to me. So, but yes, the answer to your question, I very much do have a tail. I'm very proud of it. It's a very lovely tail. Sometimes I'm sure you can't really flip somebody off with a tail, I guess, but I'm sure I use it to trip people, that sort of thing.
So the last question we have currently, is going to be from a Nora Ling. The question is, when you're playing as Nocturne and you're joking around with Sunny, I have a request.
Ooh.
Would you please play a major prank on Balam that involves cutting his beard? Ma'am, that is a crime in a lot of countries. Cutting a man's beard, that is, I hope you're a ma'am. Ma'am or sir, I apologize. That is mean. That is very mean. Wow.
I am, however, writing it down.
Uh-oh. So that's going to be interesting. I do believe
he might notice me.
I do believe he's also playing a tiefling, correct?
He is. Yes, Balam is a tiefling and winged, as I am. Although I do not know if he has a beard. I couldn't tell you. I know the player has a beard. I do not know if the character does. I'll have to let you know.
Well, we'll find out at the table. So for now, I think that's everything, unless you have anything.
I don't think so. It's been a while since playing. I usually only play one game at a time. Mm-hmm. Some of the other players have 3, 4, 5, 17 games going at once, but I'm with other things. I can really only focus on one. So it's been a month and a half or so since I've been able to play, so I'm really itching to get back on the table. This Saturday, was it 1 p.m. Central Time?
Yep.
Is that right?
1 p.m. Central Time.
I'm really looking forward to that. Really itching to get back into some role-playing, and I hope you guys enjoy. If you have any suggestions for ways to make the players' lives miserable, be sure to let the DM know. I'm sure he doesn't need any help on that front, but I'm sure he'd appreciate it. And,
well, currently we are allowing all of our viewers to jump into Discord and interact with our players. So feel free to jump in and find out which one is Nocturne and send him a message if you have a suggestion. But other than that, thank you so much, Rob, for being here. I look forward to Nocturne and all of his upcoming shenanigans.
As do I.
And as usual, I'd like to give a shout out to all of our old guard, people who have played in my campaign before and previously, for helping me develop this world. And thank you to all of our patrons and all of our supporters and viewers. Thank you so much again, and we look forward to seeing you at our next interview. And for now, have a good time, be safe, and see you at the table.